And good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening from. This is the last word on rugby. We are chatting the return of the URC. We are chatting the Springboks being bolstered by various partners as they go in search of that three-peat at the 2027 Rugby World Cup. If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, and share the podcast as we bring you the latest news in South African rugby, whether it's the URC or the Springboks. With me again today, Mike Greenaway, Ashfaq Mohammed. Guys, good morning and welcome again to a chat after a busy weekend of URC rugby, eh?
Good morning, guys.
How's it, guys?
Guys, let's start off with the Lions. I mean, pretty much dominated a game in the URC. And they came up short in the end. If you can tap on what went wrong for them, because I mean, if you have more than 65% territory and possession, the other team sees so little of the ball and you come up short, you don't win it. What goes wrong in a team when that happens, Mike? What do you think went wrong there?
Yeah, a couple of silly passes at crucial times. I mean, Marius Lowe gifting that try to the Cardiff wing was just a coach killer. But you know what? We could be talking about a good Lions win too. A few things have gone their way, especially right at the end. And it's very easy to times. But the ref was very indecisive. And instead of asking the TMO, on-field decision is a try. Can you tell me why there any reason why I shouldn't award it? He rephrased it, no try, and then the TMO always just backs up what the ref says. And Cashman Royan said to him it was an interesting decision, and then he's also called it a non-decision. So I'm quoting him, and I think that's really what happened there. It was quite an inexperienced Italian referee who just didn't make the correct call, and I think the Lions suffered, but they had the opportunities to win it long before. But yeah, then we'll be talking about a good start to the Lions' turn points. They'll be kicking themselves.
But it's almost like, guys, it's almost like we say the same things about the Lions every week.
Yeah.
So near and
Groundhog
yet so
Day.
far, and
Groundhog Day.
and you sometimes feel the Lions sometimes shoot themselves away at the line, and you're not getting joy from the refs. I know those incidents were right at the end of the game. But some get you going, can also do wonders under the pump, but you're not getting rewarded for it. So, 3 points is 3 points, and especially away from home, where things may not always go your way. The crowd gets going on the ref's back, and he's scared to make a decision. As Cash said, a non-decision in this regard. So, sometimes you've got to take the scruff of the neck and just go for it and try something different, because just doing the same thing every week and complaining or having sort of a fallout afterwards, or we had opportunities. I mean, how many times haven't we said that about the Lions?
Yeah, true. And that's been the story of the Lions. I think we see them perform so good one week, and then like the next week they fall out of the bus and they just can't seem to string those back-to-back performances together. On the other spectrum, I mean, the Stormers went overseas. They were away from home against the Bulls. They went overseas and they conjured up some magic with the return of Sasha Feinberg and Gomezulu and then Warwick Gelant at the back. How good was it to see them play Stormers rugby for I think arguably the first or second time this season, where they just ran their opponents to pieces. But then, as Ashfaq has been hammering on, sometimes you just decide, let's stop for a bit now. We are ahead. Let's control this game and put it in the bag, where they just in the second half went crazy and everything had to be chucked out wide. And sometimes you just have to control that game if you're up by 2 scores, eh?
Yeah, look, I think Dobbo surprised us a little bit with his selection. Remember last week's show, we were talking about how he's going to fit all the pieces of the jigsaw together, and he actually selected quite conservatively, and I think that that was good because they had that first half sort of continuity from the previous game with the centre pairing especially, and then bringing Damien on afterwards. I thought he got his selection right. And of course we all called for Sasha to start, and he did. And I mean, it was unto the manner born yet again for him, just showing his class. So I think we should give credit to John Dobson for how he selected that back line. If you agree, Ash.
Having Damien Willems on the bench was a big call there, but it was understandable. I mean, the man hasn't played for months now, So Warwick Galant, I think just having a guy like Sasha there to really call the shots, and take charge there helped Warwick sort of free up Warwick. Even though you wouldn't think that he's never free because the way he runs around, but I mean some of those dummies and offloads was wonderful to see from Warwick, and getting guys into space and sometimes going himself as well. So it just all came together for the Stormers. Yes, they allowed the Scarlets back into the game, and but at least they finished it off in style with getting the bonus point try through Andre Goventer. But the kind of rugby that they played, that is what we know the Stormers can produce week on week. And they haven't up to now. It's just been here and there. So now the challenge for them is to continue playing that kind of game. They fully believe in it. They're never going to go away with it. Rito Krongwani, the assistant coach, again said during this week now that is how they want to play and they believe in, and they won't move away from it. And that's great. But you've got to back it up with performances as well. It can't just be sort of airy-fairy, pie in the sky kind of thinking that you can do it, but actually not doing it on the pitch. So let's hope that the Stormers can do it again against Ulster. Ulster will be a different kind of challenge. May not allow the Stormers as much space to maneuver the Scarlets did. They're gonna take them on up front, and that is the first challenge the Stormers need to deal with.
Yeah, and speaking about getting out of jail, yes, Ash, what happened at the Bulls there against that Leinster B team? It took that last gasp, massive scrum, something they've been known for this entire season, and then a creel kick that did not hit the uprights, as he's had a couple of times this season. Why do you think they left it till so late against that B team?
Even though it was sort of a Leinster B team, it's difficult to call any team a B team when you've got Arthur Snyman and Jody Barrett in your team, and they are world-class operators, and they really got Leinster going. And we know how good Leinster are, even when they don't have the Six Nations Irish players there. These guys play for most of the season anyway, because those guys, test players, are away for so long. But credit to the Bulls, yes, they didn't help themselves. Jake spoke about his quote unquote stupidity of some of the decisions from the players, and it's not only about the red card and the yellow card they conceded, but the penalties, sort of double penalties at a time that just brings Leinster back into the mix when you've got them, in control there. So that is the thing that the Bulls need to learn from that. I mean, wonderful late scrum there after the hooter. Morne Smith putting the shove on there and setting it up for David Kriel to do his magic again with a boot like he did against Benetton last year. But I'm sure, Jake wouldn't want to experience such heart attacks again going forward. And Zebre is not going to be easy beats, as Mike will tell you from the Sharks last week. So, the Bulls can't afford to just relax this weekend and think it's going to be an easy Saturday at Loftus.
Yeah, so if we want to talk about Zebre, look, I mean, John Plumtree made the point that there's no easy games anymore in the URC, and that is true. I mean, nearly all the teams are competitive now. There's not too many deadbeats. Maybe the Dragons are still struggling a little bit, but the Sharks just didn't help themselves by probably underestimating Zebre a little bit. And then getting the kicking game horribly wrong. They gave the full back of Zebre so many opportunities to run from the back, and he is just simply brilliant, that guy. I mean, he scored two sensational tries, and I think he had one held up. But and the interesting thing about that game is like the Sharks started with a flurry. They scored 14 points. Then they took the foot off the gas. Zebrem scored 14 points. Then the Sharks woke up and they scored 14 points. And then there was a Zebrem penalty. And then they scored. It went in batches of 14 as the Sharks seemed to lose concentration and lose control of their game management and tactics. And Zebrem would just come back. And I think though that while the Sharks will learn from how to attack Leinster from the Bulls game, the Bulls will learn exactly the same thing because Zebrem are vulnerable up front, and we saw that Sharks front row, Vincent Koch and Bongi. They scrum Zebrem, but the Sharks just didn't really do what they should have done with the possession. They got their kicking game wrong. But I think the Bulls can really get a serious advantage against Zebrem in the front row, just like the Sharks will attack Leinster in the same way. But the Sharks will. I mean, the best thing that could have happened to them was to have that iffy performance against Zebrem prior to playing Leinster. If it had been a 50, 60-point romp, the Sharks haven't matured fully as a team yet, and the guys get their heads in the cloud at various stages. So they got the points, but they know they played badly and they have to play much better, and that's probably perfect from John Plumtree's point of view as he approaches Leinster.
Yeah, I was fairly happy with how Sia chastised these players after the game. I mean, he some captains would hesitate to do that, but he just said it was not good enough. It was actually unacceptable that they went that route after going up. They lose their discipline, and I mean for a team full of Springboks like that, you would think that that they would play the way they some of them play at the national level as well. But it's going to be interesting how they respond to his words, to Plum's words. The two tough games in South Africa, and I think the Lions have their work cut out for them this weekend, playing the defending champions. Would really hope they can string good performances together, and then just the Stormers, they're not banking on a win really, but they are targeting that thing. But if they can get 2 or 3 points from Ulster, they'll still be in contention when they come home for their last 4 games. Just quickly, guys, overview on the 4 games, starting with that Stormers one tomorrow night. Mike, what do you think they're going to achieve in Ireland, as for the Lions as well?
Yeah. So South African teams generally do badly in Belfast. Our overall record is poor. There's something about that Ravenhill ground. South African teams seldom win, but I think the Stormers have got momentum on their side, and the Ulster aren't the side that they have been in previous seasons. They've had coaching changes. They are struggling a little bit. They do have that great home ground advantage. I think the Stormers, the stars are lining up for them. They're getting their players back. They're getting confidence. They're playing fantastic rugby. I think the Stormers will beat Ulster.
Ashim, on your side, what do you think is going to happen in that, especially the 2 overseas games? I think they can lay the platform there for when the other 2 SA sides go over for their last tour.
Yeah, it's also the playoff race in the URC. I mean, that log is so tight at the moment, even down to Zebre. I think Zebre is on 27 or 28, around about there. They're not entirely out of the mix either, in second last spot on the log. So, it's all to play for, and the Lions need to get something out of the Glasgow game, whether it's, even a losing bonus point, just to stay in touch. But you would hope that there's going to be a response after almost sort of throwing away the Cardiff game. Really, they should have won last week. And you never know, it might just click for them and things happen. And, you can, as good a team as Glasgow are, it's not unfeasible for the Lions to actually win in Scotland. So let's hope they can do it. The Stormers definitely, I mean, Ulster, as Mike said, not great checks at the moment. But again, the Stormers away record this season hasn't been good. We know they've battled, but hopefully they've now finally found their groove. And this is now their charge to the URC, not only the players, but even all the way. As they did in that first season, they didn't have a great start either, and they managed to win the title in the end.
Yeah, yeah. I'm of course looking forward to the Sharks and Leinster. We all know what the last time Leinster, meaning Ireland, toured the side. But yeah, speaking about the international scene, guys, this past week, some very big announcements from SA Rugby, including the the expansion of the FNB sponsorship, if I can call it like that, taking over from MTN. Um, Pick a Pay even coming on board, one of SA's largest
Yeah.
retail stores. They are really SA Rugby. They are putting the box in possibly the best position to go and get that three-peat when you look at the sponsorships coming on board.
Yeah, and I look back to the early 2000s around there where when the Boks were doing badly and they struggled to attract sponsors. I mean, and now the sponsors are queuing up and
Yeah.
banging on the door. Everyone wants to get involved. We've got let's not forget Coca-Cola is also involved. Pick and Pay. I look MTN. I think 8 years. That's probably I'm not a marketing expert, but I do understand that that's kind of like the shelf life for sponsorship. Then you move on to something else, and they're going to get involved in more in soccer. So I think that just ran its course naturally. But yeah, like I say, everyone wants to back a winner. And you're right, there's a lot of cash that's going to be coming in, and the Boks are going to have all the resources they possibly need. I'm just wondering how all these sponsors' logos are going to fit on the jerseys and
Yes.
how we're going to look like a Christmas tree there. But no, the more the merrier. Yeah.
Yeah, and as much as we didn't like the previous sponsor's big logo on the front there, it
Yeah,
pays the bills, and we know
it
the
does.
issues there's been around this whole equity deal in SA Rugby as well, and they've put it on hold now for the moment because of these kind of sponsorships coming through. So
Yes, yes.
the more that happens, then the less danger, almost in inverted commas, it is of perhaps outside influences taking control of SA Rugby, or trying to determine the course of the Springbok team in a different direction. We have now South African companies getting involved, and SA Rugby being able to direct the resources accordingly. And of course, the women's game as well, the Springbok women
Yeah,
team qualified for the World Cup. So that will help them also in that regard in terms of preparing. They've already had a number of training camps, and they're going to have many more and a few warm-up games building up to the World Cup later this year. So, all in all, it's a good news story, and we hope it continues going forward, because the future of rugby in this country, of course, massive leading up to the 2027 Men's Rugby World Cup.
yeah, yeah. I was just gonna add, it's massive for the women's box who under Swayster Brain and his coaches have been making massive strides in terms of how they want to play at the World Cup. Plenty more resources being dumped into the women's programs. SA Rugby is going to start a brand new domestic women's competition that Pick n Pay is going to play a big part in, and then obviously the retailer getting involved in the Gold Cup, that SA's premier amateur club rugby competition. So hopefully there can also a few more stars can be unearthed in that competition. We know former Springbok Garth April was one of the products that came from the Gold Cup. So hopefully that's another springboard for some amateur players to get into some sort of professional setup if the competition gets more exposure. I'm looking forward to seeing where to the sponsorships take SA Rugby and ultimately the Springboks in the future as well. Guys, thanks for joining us for this chat again. It's gonna be a lovely weekend of rugby again. We have the Stormers starting on Friday night. It's going to be a hopefully not too cold Friday night for them up in Ireland. But
I
then
hope they don't
obviously
spoil our weekend, Leighton.
they can't pull a Lions what the Lions did last week Friday. I was really banking on four South African team wins.
Yeah.
And we were all banking on that because the Lions had a good easy I don't want to say easy game, but a good team to start off their tour with, and they didn't make it happen. Luckily, the other three South African teams pulled it off. Also, some nail biters in the end. Hopefully, we don't chew our nails when it comes to the games this weekend. But thanks, guys. That was another episode of The Last Word on Rugby. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, four South African wins and four South African teams in a top eight spot as the Lions and the Stormers. Well, the Stormers will return home. The Lions, of course, have that Challenge Cup match that they still have to play overseas, and the Sharks and the Bulls will join them. But hopefully, we'll get some good news on the rugby front, and we'll bring all that to you next week when we chat again. Cheers for now. Thanks.